Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. We crafted this specifically as a Q&A study guide for all you MJMC students out there. Today, we are going to completely demystify the mechanics of media influence. We're going to start way zoomed out, looking at the macro-level history of mass communication, and then work our way all the way down to the micro-level psychology of individual consumers, like you and me. It is a really fascinating journey, so let's just get right into it.
Here is the roadmap for your study guide today. We'll hit why we study theory, the 4 distinct media eras, the 2-step flow, the multi-step flow, and finally, individual differences.
Okay, kicking things off with Section 1, Why Study Media Theory? Really getting a handle on the impact.
So, you might be sitting there wondering, why do we even need to study all this media theory? Well, to answer that, we have to recognize that media isn't just, background entertainment. It is a profound, literal force that shapes our entire global society. As communication scholars, we're basically social researchers trying to figure out human behavior. I mean, the gap between a standard phone service and a television broadcast is bridging so incredibly fast right now, and we absolutely need theory to understand how that impacts our social interactions and personal experiences, whether those effects are totally intentional or completely accidental.
This quote by Chaffee from 2001 really hits the nail on the head. Modern technology has fundamentally transformed you from a simple, everyday consumer into a totally autonomous creator, and that drastically shifts the balance of societal power. You now have the power to select, create, and distribute content, all at a way lower cost. Just think about it for a second. A teenager with a smartphone today has literally more broadcasting power than an entire 1990s television studio. That is a massive paradigm shift.
Because of this massive shift, we use these theories to break down how media acts as a formidable tool across 4 major dimensions of society. In power, it controls the flow of information and amplifies voices. Over in politics, it acts as the fourth estate, sure, but it can also easily propagate propaganda. In economics, it accelerates globalization through the internet and satellites. And finally, in culture, it can either reinforce old societal stereotypes or challenge them to help build a brand new, convergent global culture.
Moving right along to Section 2. The 4 media eras. Let's look at the historical evolution.
So, question 2, how exactly did our whole understanding of media change over time? Well, our modern academic theories didn't just pop up overnight. They actually evolved through 4 distinct historical phases, shifting constantly as technology advanced and as we got better at academic research.
Let's trace this back on the timeline here. We start in the late 19th century with the era of mass society. This was completely born out of fears of industrialization and the total panic over propaganda during the World Wars. Think about the crazy panic from that War of the Worlds radio broadcast. Then by the 1940s, researchers like Paul Lazarsfeld brought in hard data and scientific surveys, leading to the era of limited effects. This proved media wasn't actually as all-powerful as everyone feared. Fast forward to the 1960s and 70s, and neo-Marxist scholars in Europe introduced the era of cultural theory, which really focused on how media pushes the ideologies of the elite. And finally, we land in the present day, the era of meaning-making perspectives, which is all driven by new tech and media literacy.
Now, it's actually wild to contrast that very first era with where we are today. Back in the mass society era, we had the hypodermic needle or magic bullet theory. Audiences were seen as these completely passive victims, super vulnerable to manipulation. Now compare that to today's meaning-making perspective. The script is completely flipped. Now you, the active audience, are intentionally utilizing media to construct meaning, manage your own moods, and create your own content.
All right, Section 3, the 2-step flow theory. How messages actually navigate through society.
This brings up a really huge question for any media student. Does the media actually influence you directly? You might just assume, yeah, I'm absorbing my opinions straight from the evening news or my social feed. But back in 1955, researchers Paul Lazarsfeld and Ilyu Katz discovered something completely different when they published Personal Influence.
They introduced us to the 2-step flow theory. And what this theory says is that direct media influence is actually pretty rare. Instead, they identified what they called opinion leaders. These are highly knowledgeable, respected figures in a community who consume elite media, interpret it, and then pass their viewpoints onto their own social networks. In 1955, an opinion leader might have been the town elder. Today, it's totally your favorite tech reviewer on YouTube or a popular TikTok creator. In this model, influence literally happens in 2 very distinct steps. Step 1, the mass media broadcasts out to those opinion leaders. Step 2,
The opinion leaders use their personal relationships to guide the opinion followers. This places an immense amount of power in personal, interpersonal influence rather than just the direct broadcast itself.
Which leads us to Section 4, Multi-Step Flow in Action. Let's look at this intricate information flow.
But hold on. What happens when influence goes in multiple directions? Because, let's be real, human communication isn't just top-down. It's messy. And the academic framework absolutely had to evolve to capture that reality.
Enter the multi-step flow theory. This is an evolution that acknowledges that information might actually pass through 2, 3, maybe even 6 opinion leaders before it ever reaches the general public. And here's the kicker. As information passes through these multiple layers, opinion leaders often infuse their own biases and interpretations. They can alter or completely distort the original message. It's multidirectional. It's basically a massive societal game of telephone.
Notice how this flow adds a totally critical third step. Step 1, media hits the leaders and some general receivers. Step 2, leaders influence the seekers. But Step 3, this is where the magic happens, a feedback loop. Engaged audiences suggest, criticize, or appreciate content, effectively communicating right back to the opinion leaders and the media itself. It's this continuous, dynamic conversation.
Finally, let's bring it all down to the micro level with Section 5, Individual Differences and You.
Seriously, ask yourself this. Why is it that two people can watch the exact same news report but walk away with completely opposite judgments?
Well, the answer is found in the individual difference theory, which is sometimes called the attitude change theory. This psychological concept explains that our diverse values, our prior knowledge, our biases, and even our emotional states on a given day ultimately dictate how we consume and react to information. Essentially, your unique psychological makeup is the ultimate filter for media.
American researcher Carl Hovland actually proved this. He showed that audiences are incredibly discerning, and he introduced these concepts of selectivity. We use selective exposure, selective perception, and selective retention to basically act as a shield between the media message and its intended effect. We actively protect ourselves from conflicting information, and we only perceive and remember the stuff that already aligns with our existing beliefs. And we do all of this because we're actively seeking out media to fulfill very specific psychological needs. Maybe you need information, like checking the weather. Maybe you need integration, that sense of belonging to a fandom. You might seek affective needs, just looking for a thrill or excitement. Or, of course, escapism, like binge-watching hours of cat videos just to forget about your upcoming exams. This completely shatters that old mass society illusion that we're passive targets for a magic bullet. For sure, we are active, purposeful consumers.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to think about your own media habits. In today's convergent culture, where the lines between consumer and creator are just entirely blurred, how are you shaping the flow of information? Are you the opinion leader for your friend group, the follower, or are you just completely selective in curating your own reality? Think about that the next time you're scrolling.